What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Gin College Podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, here with Cody Almasi. Cody, how are we doing today, man?
Doing good, brother. Happy Friday. Ready to enjoy some football tomorrow night. Sports are just, net headlines are going crazy, just coming at us from all angles right now. Basketball, football, NFL, and NCAA. It's wild out there right now, so a lot to cover.
Definitely a lot to cover. We only can cover so much with the time allotted, so we'll try to do our best to cover the most tonight with the time that we have. A lot of stuff going on, like you said, in college football. College football rankings, the playoff rankings are constantly fluctuating. They're moving. People are getting shifted around, so it's really fun. There's shots even being fired at Gary Barta, the head of the college football committee, college football playoff committee. So it's nice. It's nice to see Paul Finnbaum take some shots at him on ESPN. I watched that by the decision to put Michigan State behind Michigan, and that kind of removes me from the situation, from creating controversy that might not need to be created when other analysts are creating it. So we're not going to get into that too much tonight, though. We're going to talk about the games at hand that we have for this upcoming weekend. We got Week 11 ahead of us, and it's going to be a lot of crazy games, a lot of pivotal games this weekend that are going to really turn the tide, or possibly turn the tide based on how they play out. So the first game I want to talk about is Purdue at Ohio State. So Cody, I just want to get your first takes on this game. What are we expecting to see? And are the spoiler makers going to do it again and do it against Ohio State? Can they do that or not? Let me know.
I'm probably on the side of most anybody else in the nation. In the last year, a Buckeye fan, I'd love to see them get another mark in the loss column, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. They are the Ohio State Buckeyes. I didn't get my hopes up last week for Sparty losing, and that happened. So maybe they'll surprise me with a little treat. Maybe Aiden O'Connell will throw for another 500 yards or so, because if him and David Bell can connect like they have been over the last couple games, especially against Iowa and Michigan State, then, the Ohio State secondary is going to have their hands full, and you could see anything happen, as we know can and will in this college football season. But I don't know if they let Trayvon Henderson and CJ Stroud get loose and score too many points. It'll be different than against Michigan State. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think it will be, and I'm really counting on Purdue and the spoiler makers to do what they have to do to get the job done, or at least make it a game with Ohio State. So Aiden O'Connell really has to get the job done in the quarterback position, has to combat C.J. Stroud. The defense of Purdue has to combat C.J. Stroud and his ability to get passing yards through the air, and passing touchdowns are obviously a must too. Purdue's defense showed us that fire last weekend against Michigan State. Shutting down Kenneth Walker and really shutting down the entire run game. And it limited Peyton Thorne going through the air as well. It really didn't allow him to pass like he wanted to, didn't allow him to get that fire, those fast 2-minute drill drives down the yard, down the field, and to get those quick touchdowns. It didn't really allow them to do that. So let's just take a quick look at the spread. So Purdue is plus 21, obviously Ohio State minus 21. Purdue is plus 850 on the money line scale and minus 1,600 for Ohio State. So a little bit staggering numbers there, over under 63.5. So the bookies are expecting some points to be scored. Where those points are scored, it's kind of going to depend on what offense really gets the job done. Is David Bell going to be hot? That David Bell, Aiden O'Connell duo is really lethal. If you can get that going, you can get it rocking and rolling. It's lethal on the offensive side for Purdue. And if Ohio State if they struggle trying to stop that, I mean, they could be having their hands full. So
yeah, I might lean towards the over on this one. I don't know. It's tough, but just the potential is there for a high scoring affair with David Bell, like you said, Aiden O'Connell, and then on the other side, CJ Stroud. We know his running back, but then he's got Smith and Jigba, Olave, and just all kinds of weapons at receivers. And Smith and Jigba and David Bell are both top 15 receivers. So we could see some video game numbers in this game, and that'd be a treat.
Yeah, it really would be. I tell you what would really be a treat is to see Purdue and the spoiler makers come out and beat the Ohio State Buckeyes. That'll completely open up the
Especially
Big Ten East.
the shoe there in Columbus. That'd be quite the accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, someone's got to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten. They got pretty much the ringer going through. They're going to be going through the ringer the next couple weeks. You know, they got Michigan State coming up. They got Michigan coming up. Obviously, Purdue is no easy task. It's going to be interesting to see how they fare against these teams when they're really going to get put to the test with one loss already to Oregon. I mean, they're walking on eggshells like a lot of teams in the Big Ten are, especially the Big Ten East. Who's going to clinch the Big Ten East? It's all going to happen in these next couple weeks. So it's still free for the taking for whatever team wants it, regardless of regardless of current standings, regardless of current records. I guess Ohio State kind of squeezes by. They still have to win out because they're playing Big Ten conference games going forward, but they have that luck factor going in because they don't have a loss in conference. They have that loss out of conference to Oregon, which obviously sets them aside and apart from Michigan and Michigan State. So it's gonna be cool to see. I can't wait to see how
Definitely
this
interesting how
finishes
they
up.
all kind of control their destiny over there, since Michigan's got to play Ohio State and Michigan State also has to play Ohio State. It just all depends on what happens in those last couple of weeks, and
Right.
then this weekend with my Wolverines and Penn State. So it's going to be really, really interesting. I would love, my dream scenario is two Big Ten teams in the football playoff. That'd be a dream come true, especially if it happened to be the two teams from Michigan. But we're not going to speak too much on it. Don't want to change the change.
That would be crazy. I got to be honest, that would be insane. I think a lot of people would love to see that matchup for the final two. But
College football playoff, it'd be amazing for your ratings. I'll just say that now.
Oh yeah, I mean that puts you in the conversation of being the best conference out there compared to the SEC, which is already undoubtedly the best, most competitive conference out there. Especially you talk to a lot of SEC fans, your LSU fans, your Roll Tide fans, your Georgia fans. They're going to say that, and a lot of times there's those placeholders in the top one, top two spots are usually SEC teams. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that. Put the Big Ten in front of the car, put them in the conversation to be the best conference out there. That's really all you gotta really focus on, and that's what is really going to take place potentially in these next couple weeks. If you want that to be something, and they're already a conference that's up there, so you got to see that through, see them be a part of the best conferences in the world. So let's move on to the next game we have. We're going to be talking about another Big Ten game. Michigan and Penn State, really Big Ten heavy. As you noticed, this podcast is primarily Big Ten heavy because we really focus on the Big Ten. Both of our favorite teams are in the Big Ten, and it's very exciting outside just Michigan and Michigan State. But this game happens to take Michigan into play. So Michigan is going into Happy Valley. What do we expect to see? What do you expect to see out of your Michigan Wolverines going into this game?
Definitely interested to see how we bounce back offensively. We can't just keep leaning on Hassan Haskins. So I hope that the running back room's looking a little bit healthier coming into tomorrow afternoon. Development today, everybody, the Michigan State jerseys got revealed yesterday, but my Michigan Wolverines, everybody's speculating what we're going to wear to Happy Valley. The all maize look, it was in the stirrings, not confirmed yet, but I seen graphics being posted by Michigan people and everything, and everybody thought it was going to be a maize affair, but Penn State has shut it down. They don't want us to wear the maize, so we'll see what happens from there. I think it's just going to piss them off, and we're going to show them that we didn't need the maize jerseys, but I think as far as Penn State, they don't want us. They don't want Caden McNamara to be able to see those bright yellow jerseys running down the field as far as receivers and tell them out in the crowd of the blue. If they can get that Penn State blue in there or the white, I should say, and make a white out. Because when we played them last time, when Shea Patterson came into town, Happy Valley, it was a night game, so a little bit different atmosphere, but they were so loud that Penn State crowd getting lit to Mo Bamba, that song, So that first play, they couldn't even get the playoff, and they had to use a timeout before any time had come off the clock in the game. So it's going to be a volatile atmosphere, and Michigan's going to have to come bring their A game, and definitely could be a trap here in Happy Valley.
You mentioned my Michigan State Spartans and their jerseys. I thought we burned every single one of those jerseys with the lime green state across the thing and like 800 point font. Gotta get rid. I thought we burned them all. They must have put them in reproduction. And that is
I
what it
think
is. So,
they brought the font. They just edited the font down a little bit.
not
But
good enough. Not
yeah,
good enough.
I'm
Period.
not a fan of the Maze jerseys at all, so I'm not too mad that we can't wear them. But the fan base, I know for some reason they like the Maze. I hate them.
Let me ask you this: how does Penn State get to control that? For the Michigan Wolverines, what jerseys they're going to wear? Is it because they're at home they get to determine that, or how do they get that decision to say you
Yeah,
can't wear these jerseys, you have to wear these?
probably that it's a home game, and maybe if Michigan had predetermined it a couple in a previous date, earlier date, they would have had to let us pick. But since we're just trying to pick the day of, maybe they had the ability to veto that and just make us wear the all white. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, this game's going to be a battle of the quarterbacks. Cade McNamara against Sean Clifford. Cade McNamara is still, pretty high up on that ranking list as far as least amount of interceptions allowed in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So he hopes to keep it that way.
His offensive line is a part of it. They're protecting him better than any other group in the nation right now. He's not getting sacked very much.
Yeah, you got to give that offensive line credit where credit is due. So it's going to be a battle of the quarterbacks. There's going to be also a battle in the trenches. We're going to see the running game get tested from both sides. But it's going to come down to, I think this game's going to be decided by the passing game, depending on what team utilizes the passing game, which team is more lethal through the air. It's going to be a tough battle for Michigan in Happy Valley, especially if that Penn State crowd is loud and wild like they're used to being. So, I mean, how are you feeling? What's your analysis of this game to your Michigan Wolverines? I mean, you got to be a little bit, I don't want to say you're concerned. I don't want to speak for you, but what are you thinking your Michigan Wolverines are going through? What's going through their heads as they prepare for this game?
I just hope we still kind of have that mindset coming out of the Michigan State game where we just want to get refocused, regrouped. And even though we didn't have the best offensive showing, we controlled the game, only allowed the Hoosiers to score 7 points. So if we can get in the backfield, get Sean Clifford uncomfortable, and don't let him and Jahan Dotson form a connection and get some big chunk plays to really get their momentum in their favor, get the crowd rolling in their favor. I think if we can control that, it'll be huge and get a couple scores lead, because not comfortable with 2-score lead, especially after what Sparty did to us in East Lansing. I want to keep rolling and keep delivering knockout punches late in the game. I don't want to let them hang around and let some magic happen in Happy Valley, because it could happen. It does happen in these kind of games.
Yeah, definitely. You got to be careful to limit those big plays, those big chunk plays, because that's where a lot of times the games are won and lost by either getting those plays and getting them successfully or stopping them for the opponent to stopping the opponent from getting those big chunk plays. So look at the spread. 1.5 is the spread favoring Michigan. Tight spread, obviously big opportunities on both sides for the bettors. Decided,
I think it opened as a 1-point favoritism for the Nittany Lions too. So it's been fluctuating a bit here.
Yeah, it's been moving a lot. Count on it to move a little bit more going into tomorrow. You might see a couple point swings depending on where the bettors are betting, where that weight is at. You might see some swings in one direction or the other. So look for that. But yeah, I'm looking for this game to be a really good game. I don't know. I guess if you had to make a pick right now, take a spread or a money line bet and an over under. What do you got?
I'm gonna ride the Wolverines on the money line here. I got faith in them. There's just too much on the line. Their rivals got too much on the line, so I think we come out fired up despite being banged up. Just the only thing that worries me is Jahan Dotson and him being that X factor, and someone like that on our side of the field, a wide receiver, or someone besides Hassan Haskins, stepping up and being that X factor. I hope Blake Corum can be that guy, but I'm not too certain on his health going into tomorrow. But I'm going to ride with my Wolverines and take care of business.
Yeah, I guess if I had to take, I would definitely take the under in this game. I think it's gonna be like a 21-17 type game. I'd take Michigan against the spread, take a -1.5, even though, I guess you could really take a money line and really not lose out on a whole lot of odds. It's going to probably be around 105, -105 to -110 taking the spread. And you got -125 for money line. So you might as well just take a money line I'm going to take the under in this one. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, battle of the defenses. As long as they limit those chunk plays, if there's a lot of big plays, and that over really comes into play. So you got to be careful of that if you're a bettor. So I'll probably have to do some more analysis and make a more educated guess and analysis by the morning.
These Big Ten games have been tough to calculate the over-unders this year because
They've
usually it's that you can count on defenses and everything, but almost all the Big Ten teams have the ability to put up 40 pieces, 50 pieces this year. So it's a tough call to see who cancels out who as far as offense and defense.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot to be left up for determination for both sides. So we'll have to look for this one as being a high contender game for the bettors to have opportunities. Obviously, the opportunities are there with this lower spread, but that also makes the potential for a trap game for it to possibly go either way if one team gets hot and other team's cold. So we got to be focusing on that. Make sure you're looking at your statistics, looking at your analytics, and Cody's our analytics guy, so I'll probably be talking to him off stream about some betting stuff. So let's move on. Let's talk about Oklahoma and Baylor. Obviously, Oklahoma is one of the only undefeated teams left in the college football landscape against Baylor. Big time matchup. And, we're focused on this matchup as being a big time matchup, possibly one of the best matchups that Oklahoma has faced so far. And I'm looking for this to be a good game. There's definitely opportunities here on the betting side. Let me ask you, Cody, what are you seeing in this game? Does Oklahoma and the Sooners have what it takes to beat Baylor and the Bears at their place?
I'm really bummed out this is going to be at the same time as Michigan-Penn State game because I'd love to lock in on this game and really get a good look. I've seen Oklahoma a few times, but I'd love to see Baylor more. Only 2 losses and just coming off a heartbreaker against TCU last week. So besides that, though, the Bears have had a good year, and this will really give the Sooners a test, and they haven't really had much. I think that's why they were ranked at 8th, even though they're 9-0, which is for a lot of people, they're really confused about that. So it'll be interesting to see how the Bears respond playing the 8th ranked team in the nation after taking a loss last week. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Caleb Williams, he's the hot hand in the story, and pushed Spencer Rattler out of the picture. So they'll get their chance to prove themselves against the Baylor Bears in Waco. I think a lot of eyes are going to be on the Sooners and see how they respond to this test here.
Yeah, we'll see whether they start Spencer Rattler or Caleb Williams. It looks like Spencer Rattler's here on the stat sheets. He will potentially start this game depending how he plays. I'm sure that coach has a really, I guess he's not afraid to use that trigger finger as far as getting Spencer Rattler out of there and putting Caleb Williams in there. And he's going to be really quick to do that, I think, depending on how he starts out the first couple of drives. He might give him 1, maybe 2 series. If it's not good, if it's not looking good offensively for Spencer Rattler, he's going to pull him out quickly.
I think he's just on the stat sheet there because he has more numbers because he has more of the games played as far as the season goes. But
probably won't even get started then.
Yeah. I think it's all Caleb Williams right now. I actually some insider information here, digging on the web, found some message board comments by some credible sources is what it seems like that it's looking like Lincoln Riley might be headed to LSU when the season's done, no matter what. He just LSU, he's sought after that job for a minute now. And just after this, when I guess he wanted to sit Spencer Rattler earlier, and by the boosters and the inner workings of the Sooner hierarchy, they kind of pushed back and told him, nope, you have to start Spencer Rattler. And they were dealing with his dad. And so he made it a point to sit Spencer Rattler down, get him out of the game, and make him not a distraction to this team any longer. So that's a little bit of it's not completely confirmed, but it's looking like that's a credible story. And look for more of information like that to be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, some off-field politics, some things that definitely have to be considered that a lot of the general public, as far as viewership goes for the college football landscape, the NCAA football viewers, the ratings, that this is something that a lot of people don't see and they don't realize that a lot of this politics, a lot of these different relationships going on and different things that are happening, conversations, decisions, a lot of stuff's happening off the field that a lot of people don't see, they don't know about. So whether it's hearsay or not, It's proven to be the case. That is true. I haven't really seen Spencer Rattler hit the field that much, and he's got to be disgruntled about that. And there's got to be something else at play to be the reason for that.
As far as Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma, I think that they said that they'd like to keep him, but they don't really want to pay to match the offer that LSU is going to offer him, and think that with them moving to the SEC, that they will be able to attract just as high profile of a coach as Lincoln Riley. So we'll see how that goes, and if he actually does go to the LSU, I think that'd be great for the Tigers. A great hire, getting Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, I do too. So I think this is going to be a great test. I don't want to call this one either way. The spread is 5.5 favoring Oklahoma. And I think it could go either way. I'm going to have to give a more educated decision similar to the Michigan-Penn State game tomorrow, probably before game time, somewhere around 10, 11 o'clock. And I'll put that on my story somewhere if I decide to share it. So we'll be looking for that on Instagram. But let's move on. Let's talk about the college football playoff rankings. Let's talk about how they've changed, how things have fluctuated thus far. Let's talk about some placements of certain teams. Now, Paul Finnbaum was very pissed off that Michigan State was placed behind Michigan in the college football playoff rankings. He took personal shots at Gary Barta for making these decisions. And, I guess I kind of see both sides. Yes, Michigan State did beat Michigan, but Michigan State lost to a team that wasn't even ranked. Yes, it was a Big Ten loss as well. Doesn't look good on Michigan State's end. I think that was a big component of putting Michigan State at 7 and putting Michigan at 6. What do you think about the college football playoff rankings right now? And do you think they're accurate?
Since they leave themselves for so much scrutiny with only 4 spots, it's tough to really get it accurate when there's more deserving teams. But when you have criticism like that, like Oregon beat Ohio State by a touchdown at the end of a close game, and they have Oregon ranked ahead of Ohio State, but they don't have Michigan State ranked over Michigan. As much as I like to see them sitting at the 6th spot and not the 7, and to see how much controversy and kind of squirming in the Michigan State fan base, to see how much just that affects you guys. It's funny because it doesn't really matter. These rankings don't matter too much. Everything is going to get settled and hashed out, and those 4 teams will be there. I mean, there's going to be a lot more losses on these teams' resumes in a few weeks. So, it's tough, and that's why it needs to be expanded, as we've talked on in great length. But as far as having Oklahoma Sooners at 8 is a little bit head scratching to me, especially with their brand recognition and being in the playoff conversation so frequently in the last couple of years. To have them sitting back there undefeated, it's a little interesting, but I'm not too mad at it. I'm happy Notre Dame sitting back there at 9 where they belong.
Yeah, I put Notre Dame at 9 or 10. And if I could change anything, I'd probably bring Michigan and Michigan State down, put them at 7 and 8, put Oklahoma at 6, leave Cincinnati at 5. I like Cincinnati at 5. I can take it or leave it with Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, there's 3 8-1 teams in the top 4. And you ask yourself, is there something wrong with that picture? And I'll let you answer that. Not you personally, maybe, but the viewers. If you guys think there's something wrong with this, let me know, because a lot of people think there's something wrong with this picture. It's just kind of interesting how they really decide. I get everybody has to find a place. If teams are 8-1 or 9-0 up to this point, they deserve to be in the top 10. I understand that. And it's got to be a difficult job for the college football playoff selection committee. It's got to be difficult. But there's certain things that can be broken down more quantitatively, that we can look at a piece of paper and be like, this team deserves to be here based on this, that, the other thing. It's just there's a lot of calculations that have to undergo before certain teams are placed in certain spots. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'll leave it to the selection committee to make those tough decisions, and we'll see how it pans out going down the stretch into the rest of the season. And we'll basically leave it at that for now. As far as the CFP rankings are concerned, let's talk about a couple more games that are very pertinent to the conversation. Let's talk about North Carolina and Pitt. Pitt squeezed out a crazy win in overtime against the Tar Heels, winning 30-23. Pat Narduzzi's got to be happy. He's got to be, getting a little stiff in the britches about that win. What do you think about that game that happened last night? And, it really, it's not like this game really holds a lot of weight as far as the CFP rankings go, but it's something that's worth noting. How'd you feel about this game last night?
Yeah, not too much college football playoff implications, but a little more implication of something we don't talk about too often is in the Heisman race. Kenny Pickett, he's the guy who slings the ball for the Pittsburgh Panthers, and he hasn't gotten much love, much show, but dude's putting together a great season, and it's him, Kenneth Walker, C.J. Stroud, and Bryce Young who are really running away with the conversation as far as what I've seen lately. So it was a standalone game. Cool to see Pitt out there. UNC, we've seen them a couple times. They've had some premier games, like against Wake Forest. They upset them, and they almost played that same role this week, Thursday night, against Pittsburgh. But all said and done, Kenny Pickett and number 25 Pitt, they escape, or 21. Sorry, it's a little confusing with how all the three different rankings now, AP, CFP, and the coaches poll. They have a couple different rankings at the same time simultaneously.
It's a mess. It's an absolute mess.
It is.
But yeah, great win from the Pittsburgh Panthers, especially after the Tar Heels came back from 17-0. Really strung together some good offensive drives, some good series, really made it a close game, bringing it to overtime. And really had a second half. It was started in the first half, but it built into a second half comeback for the Tar Heels. Really impressive stuff, impressive work.
Makes you wonder what the Tar Heels season might look like if they played how they always do when they're down, because they look electric and like they got a lot of fire when they're down by a couple scores. But when they just have the game to play in front of them, they can't seem to get any motivation or really fire under the feet.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of got to find that, and you got to hone in on that fire to be able to, summon it and bring it out. And for some teams, it's easier than others. But whenever you're fighting back from a deficit, it's never easy. You got to go to some unorthodox tactics to really, make that a possibility. And we've seen multiple teams do that this year and do it effectively. Let's look at some other games that are on our docket, that are on our watch list. Maybe didn't make it to our top 3, top 4 this week. But we're going to talk about Texas A&M and Ole Miss, number 11 fighting number 15. I believe this is in the SEC West. So this is going to be a good matchup. Cody, you talked to me about this one pre-stream. How do you feel about this game? What are we looking for?
Yeah, definitely lots of implications as who. Well, they need Bama to slip up one more time, but then Texas A&M and Ole Miss have a shot in the SEC West beyond that. But as far as just finishing strong in the season and having recruits look at you for next year, it's going to be big SEC matchup. Another Heisman candidate in Matt Corral, and he's the only one I think really holds the candle in how much he earns it compared to Kenneth Walker, because he's had some injuries really pile up. He doesn't have a reliable running back to tote the ball for him. So the dude leads in passing and rushing. He's got 10 rushing touchdowns, over 500 yards. So that's a lot for the guy throwing the rock for your team to have, especially when it's not by design, not really the plan you had in mind for the season. You didn't want him being the lead runner, taking that many hits, but it's earned him a spot on the Heisman watch list. And yeah, well, I'm excited to see what happens. It's in Oxford, Mississippi, so that gives a little bit of edge to the Rebels, I think. Oh, nope, Texas A&M is a 2.5-point favorite, so we'll see if the Aggies can keep that defense rolling into this week like they did against Auburn last week.
Yeah, so you look at Matt Corral, leading in passing yards. Obviously, he's the quarterback, the one slinging the rock every week, but he's also leading in rushing yards, like you said. So obviously, big Heisman contender next to Kenneth Walker, among others that are in the conversation. But that's going against one of the top 5 defenses in the college football landscape with Texas A&M and the Aggies. So we're going to see how Matt Corral really hones in that offense, how they really channel that offense to be able to combat this top 5 defense. So it's going to be a battle. There's obviously opportunities here on both sides. You can look for this line to change significantly between now and tomorrow. This is a 7:00 game Eastern time tomorrow night. Big SEC West match off. matchup, and they're going to face off. It's going to be an awesome game. I'm really looking forward to this game. And the under is 57. So I'm looking for the under to hit in this game. And I expect high intensity defensive performances from both teams, as well as a solid offensive performance. So we'll be looking for that one too. Another game that's big is Mississippi State and Auburn. Obviously, Bo Nix is going to have his skills tested again to see if he has what it takes. And Mississippi State, as we've seen already, is no team to mess around with. So that's another game in the SEC that's going to be a good one to watch, one that you got to keep your eyes open for. So I'm really excited for both these games. You got Cincinnati facing off against South Florida right now. They're up 24-7 at the end of the second quarter. Looks like a good performance. Lane Kiffin and his guys, they seem like they're getting the hang of this game.
Oh, Luke Fickell.
Luke Fickell. Yeah. They're going to get the hang of this game. Hopefully they win and then make it to 10-0. And they just keep fighting. All they can do is keep fighting. They know the odds are stacked against them as far as name, image, and likeness. As far as the team's concerned, Cincinnati, that's keeping them basically out of the top 4 right now. And these different teams, these higher ranked teams in bigger conferences, the Big Ten, SEC, that's keeping them out. So they need a team like that to slip up and hold the team.
Can slip up. Yeah. Just a team like Luke Fickell's telling his guys every week, just take care of business. Don't worry about what happens Tuesday night with Gary Barta, that guy from Iowa who never played any football, what he's saying, what him and his crew are saying. Just focus on the task in front of us. Take care of business in the AAC. And Oregon could fall, Ohio State could fall, Alabama and Georgia are going to have to most likely play. But that'll be an interesting scenario because, say, Georgia loses to Alabama. Do they both get in? That feeds into my dream of 2 Big Ten teams, 2 SEC teams getting in and just absolutely pissing off the world and storming the college football playoff committee.
Let me propose something to you, Cody, real quick before we sign off for the day.
Yeah.
Imagine this. Imagine the spoiler makers beat Ohio State, and then imagine Ohio State beats Michigan and Michigan State. Then what happens? What happens to the playoff? What happens to the entire landscape? Now, this is obviously
Ohio State
ultra worst case scenario. Yeah, so say Ohio State loses this weekend to Purdue, then they go on and beat Michigan State. That puts them all at 8 or 9-2. Whatever it is, the 2 losses, basically.
No Big Ten teams get in at that point.
I mean, that opens up the Big Ten East, though, quite a bit. I mean, you still have that fight, but then who gets to play who's in first place at that point? I mean, you got to put. I think you still got to put Ohio State in first, but
yes, maybe all teams out of the playoff. But as far as the Big Ten, that would make it interesting as hell, and it would just be the absolute most chaos, I think, possibly if that scenario played out.
Yeah, obviously worst case scenario. I don't see that happening, but I mean,
as far as Ohio State, I'm looking at some the basketball scores right now, and the Buckeyes, they're ranked 17th, and they almost lost to Akron Tuesday night, tip-off Tuesday. They almost took an L to Akron, and they're losing to Niagara right now, getting to the end of the first half. So I think Oral Roberts broke them last year in the tournament.
They probably did. Oral Roberts, they got some dentists going to school over there. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing in the hardwood. I'm watching the Michigan State Western Michigan game actually currently as we speak. Michigan State is up 53-27. Significantly different performance than we've seen earlier in the week against the Jayhawks, and they still have a lot to figure out as far as the
Jayhawks are a great team though. That's a squad. My dude Ochai Agbaji had a game. He almost went to the NBA, and you could tell why. He had a career night against you guys, and they returned 4 starters, and they're gonna be a tough matchup for anybody this year. So look out for the Jayhawks. Nothing against your Sparties. The Sparties look good. Max Christie. I thought the Spartans, they had moments, they had glimpses of what could be a good team come March.
Yeah, I've seen some really good performances out of A.J. Hogard, something I didn't really see. He was a really easy-to-hate player for the Michigan State Spartans last year. He lost 25 pounds, really slimmed down, and must have got to the training room and got it figured out as far as his basketball game is concerned, because he's a hell of a lot better basketball player, almost indistinguishable between this year and last year. You really, he's very distinguishable, I guess, from last year to this year. So you can really see the difference that he's made. You can see the adjustments he's made to be a better basketball player. So I'm excited to see what he's capable of. But someone's got to take they got to take the keys, put them in the keyhole, and get in the driver's seat, because someone's got to get in that driver's seat. Last year it was Aaron Henry. For multiple years it was Cassius Winston. They got to have a guy. They got to have a leader on that team to really.
Who's your boy who transferred out? Foster Lawyer.
Monty Bates. Oh, no. Yeah, Foster Lawyer.
He's in the Davison Wildcats now, and
he plays for Davison.
He's doing good. He had a good performance his first game anyway. I think like 29 points or something.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about Foster Lawyer is he was getting minutes at State. So to see him want to leave, I mean, there either must have been a falling out, or he wasn't getting the amount of minutes that he might have wanted. But I mean, the door would have been wide open with all the players coming in this year, all the recruits. He would have had that seniority at this point if he would have stayed. Something must have happened. There might have been a Corey Lucius scenario. I don't really know. So I'll have to do some more research on why that happened, why he entered the transfer portal. But that also happened to Rocket Watts. He did that too, and he transferred out. So we're gonna have to focus on why these players are transferring out, see where they're going, why they're going there, and at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. You just got to focus on who you have. But we're looking on building that chemistry. And we're also looking on getting into more college basketball stuff as the season progresses, as the college football scene winds down. Unfortunately, though, it's not really going to wind down for, several weeks. So we're going to have to split our time and maybe split the podcast, do 20 minutes on college football, 20 minutes on college basketball, or maybe even 30-10, something like that. Keep it around 40 minutes for you guys. Just so we keep that viewership, keep that listenability for everybody, keep everyone honed in. But we'll look into that and see how we can make that work. But yeah, I'll wrap it up. I'll start wrapping it up here. Cody, you got any last final statements you want to leave the people with?
Nope. Just go blue. Michigan looking good. Number 6 come out against Buffalo. Good MAC champion team from last year. Hunter Dickinson declared for the NBA draft and ended up coming back along with a new cast of freshmen. But I'm excited for the season, and that's all I wanted to say. We play Prairie View tomorrow night, so probably another just stat-filling game.
Yeah, you got to build those stats up, put those points up, and get those 3-point percentages up, and basically just build that team chemistry. That's why it's helpful to have a team where it's not really – I mean, there's no bullshit games in college basketball either, folks. There's not any bullshit games in college football, and there's definitely not any in college basketball, as we've seen from previous March Madnesses. But
you better believe those Buffalo Bulls were playing Michigan in the Chrysler Center like it was their championship game. They were playing.
Well, they only lost by 12 points.
Yeah, they brought it within 5 at one point. I was scratching my head there for a minute, but.
The crazy thing about that game is early in the morning of that game, Michigan opened up -12. So before tip-off, it was -15. So hypothetically, if you took that game against the spread, you took Buffalo +15, you would have covered by 3 points. That's something that's very interesting, too, that has to be noted.
Jonathan Williams, 32 points against us. So
impressive.
They had some dudes balling,
See, it's all about in the early stages, who's going to build that team chemistry quicker, because it's going to be there. It's going to be there eventually, X amount of games for it to happen. But, the easier teams you have to handle, if you can get through those first couple games, remain undefeated, and build that team chemistry throughout those games, even if they're close losses and you don't cover, oh well, who cares? You got to be able to focus on getting those wins and building that team chemistry early so you can get kind of, something going where you can figure it out against better teams down the stretch. So,
yeah, I think you guys starting off your season playing in the State Farms Championship Classic against good teams, even
that's tough.
Yeah, I think it's great, though, for you guys to kind of take those hits early, especially I seen that you guys just signed on for a couple more years for it, but just to kind of know who you are early and get that chemistry developed in moments of adversity. So I think
definitely there is benefits to it, and building that adversity up, and also setting yourself up to gain more momentum going down the stretch into, getting a better ranking in the AP polls. So, you start yourself out a little bit lower. I think if you start out higher, it's harder to go down and then build your way back up. Whereas if you start down low or even unranked, it's real easy to really build that momentum and get yourself in the top 5, top 10, not too far into the season. So I like fighting from behind as far as the AP polls are concerned, because I think it's a lot of noise, it's a lot of mess to get caught up in that. So if you can start away from the AP polls at least early on, and then get more involved later in the season, because it's going to happen, you can just kind of avoid that noise and avoid that distraction. And then it, in essence, makes you and your team a lot better going into March. So good stuff, guys. Well, I'll wrap it up there. Really great show today. Really happy with everyone that tuned in. Make sure you reach out to us on all of our socials. I'll put the link tree at the bottom of the screen right now on the ticker tape. Make sure to check out Cody and his graphics. He's been putting out a lot of great graphics, a lot of great promotional material on all of our Instagram pages and on Twitter. He is at Gin Analytics on Twitter and on Instagram. Make sure to check him out, and check out at Gin College on Instagram as well for all content regarding college sports and college athletics around the league. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the Gin College podcast. I'm your host, as always, John J. II, with Cody Almasi.